What is going on, New York Giant fans? Welcome back to another video on the Big Blue in the Bronx YouTube channel. Be sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when the live stream pops or a video drops. Appreciate you all coming back. Share this out. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And it's very important you subscribe because guess what? We are 10 subs away from 1.7K. And we want to get to 2K as fast as possible. And, of course, we got to get to 1.7K, 1.8K, 1.9K, and all the above. Obviously, again, we're going to the Senior Bowl, so we're going to do all sorts of the scouting. That's going to be very fun, and you guys should be here for that too. But before we get into the nature of this video, I do want to shout out our members. The members of the Transparent Ones: Brad, Jewis, Justice Mess, Joe Gianpetro, Tudo, Azuri, Potato, and Bill Hartnett. Those guys are members of the Transparent Ones, and they click the join button and have access to all sorts of the great perks. And we're adding some new stuff to being a member in the new year. I definitely promise you that in many more ways than one. So if you hit that join button, you can be a part of the Transparent Ones. So let's get into it. This is a conversation that a lot of Giant fans don't want to have. But in today's NFL, you have to have it within a certain amount of time. And the general question we're going to be asking in this video is Evan Neal a bust? So let's get into it, right? Evan Neal. We're going to talk about the timeline. We're going to talk about the stats. And then we'll talk about the questions and the answers, of course. So obviously he was drafted 7th overall. Every Giant fan, or at least most Giant fans, were pretty happy with that. You know, getting an offensive tackle, solidifying that right side after seeing Nate Solder and Matt Parrott. The Giants needed offensive line, and Evan Neal at the time was also BPA because you got Kayvon Thibodeau at 5, you know, whoever picked who at 6, and then at 7, Evan Neal was just there, and we're like, yeah, you know, Evan Neal is going to help solidify this offensive line, right? So a lot of Giant fans obviously expected, you know, in training camp and all that sort of good stuff, that he's going to go ahead and take the right tackle spot, and he's going to have some struggles because at that time there were a couple of different teams that had a couple of different furious edge rushers. Brian Burns, DeMarcus Lawrence, Harold Landry tore his ACL, so I think at the time it was Bud Dupree. There's a couple of the different edge rushers that play well against right tackles, and a lot of the dominant edge rushers in this league, like Joey Bosa, sometimes Myles Garrett, Cameron Jordan, they play against the right tackles. So as much as left tackle is very important, I think right tackle is very important too. It's just less difficult than left tackle. But anyway, obviously drafted, comes in, competes for the spot, and gets the right tackle spot and starts week 1. Week 3 was when we really started to see the issues with Evan Neal against DeMarcus Lawrence. Gave up 3 sacks on Monday Night Football, and his feet were out of order, his hands were out of order, all sorts of issues. That's when everybody jumped on the film train and said, okay, we got to investigate, you know, what's going on with Evan Neal, right? Tons of issues there, but all fixable. Now, there were some sort of, this came from college, really, balance issues, right? Evan Neal, I'm going to see how much he weighs right now, and I know some of these sites may not be accurate, but at least right now, according to the Giants website, he's 340. So that's about, I would say, the average weight in offensive tackle. Maybe you slim down a little bit, but some of the issues that came from that game and really down the stretch when he was facing some tougher edge rushers is the feet, not taking that third step in the aggressive pass set. You know, his hand placement was a little off, some stunts, and just a couple other things, but they were fixable. Those issues, you know, a little hint, he has now, they're still fixable, right? Those issues are still fixable. So, you know, gives up the 3-sack game to DeMarcus Lawrence, and they switched him up against the Ravens with vertical passing sets. And he did better. He did better, right? You know, you barely heard a peep from him that game. I think Jones barely got sacked, barely got hit in that game. I think it was maybe like 2 times that he got sacked, but, you know, I don't remember off the top of my head. But I think it was after that game, Bobby Johnson was interviewed in the presser during practice. And I believe Dan Duggan was the one who asked him the question about the vertical sets and all these different stuff. And if you look back at what Bobby Johnson says, he was basically, and I'm paraphrasing, saying, you know, we're going to stick to the scheme more than the player. Again, he didn't say those exact words, but if you look at the presser, that's held after practice, that is what he basically said. And I called it out at the time. I said, this is not good. This is not good because you always want to go to the player's strengths. And it's not like the offensive line was superb at the time. It's not like they were top 10. No, they were an average offensive line at best. And a lot of people said, no, you got to give them a chance. I like that Bobby Johnson said that. I'm like, okay, all right, y'all wanna do that. So he gets injured versus Jacksonville, which is a big one, hurts, and he is out until the Washington game. And overall, just to end 2022, you didn't really see a consistent improvement down the stretch. There were some games that, he played well against. It wasn't like an Andrew Thomas improvement, and Andrew Thomas is a better athlete, and I think he's a better player and going to be a better player overall, already right now, a better player than Evan Neal will ever be, because Andrew Thomas is a Pro Bowler, should be at least, where Evan Neal, I don't know what his ceiling stands to be at this point, and again, just to compare the two, but there was no consistent improvement down the stretch, right? Against the Eagles, in that playoff game, he was not good. I think one of the Viking games, he was not good either, going up against Danielle Hunter. And again, Danielle Hunter, yeah, he's a tough edge rusher, right? He leads the NFL in sacks at this current moment. But you got to figure out a way to defend those guys. Like, you got to correct some of that same shit on film. And those were the same issues that were showing up with the hands, with the ducking of the head, with the taking the 3 steps in your aggressive pass sets. Those were the issues that were still showing up on film that were in the beginning of the year. And it came down to 2022 stats where he gave up 7 sacks, 7 penalties, and 39 pressures. So you move to 2023. The Giants don't make any moves at right tackle. Tyree Phillips, gets cut and then comes in as the backup, which is a later on thing. But you come in with bigger expectations for Evan Neal. All Giant fans, including myself, had it in their head, hey, Evan Neal, he's gonna go ahead and he's gonna go out there and improve. Better than he did last season. He's going to solidify that right side, right? The offensive line is a total mess at this moment, but we'll get into that. He worked out with Willie Anderson, so we're like, yeah, he worked out with a Pro Bowler, someone who has a reputable, obviously, he's got credibility, right? Willie Anderson has credibility. And then you see the weeks 1 through 4, and it's absolute garbage. How many sacks given up against Dallas? Not great. Against Arizona, the issues coming out against San Fran, some against Bosa, some against other edge rushers. Let's see, who did we play in week 4? Week 4 was still showing issues. Week 5, he is where, he pissed off a lot of Giant fans with those burger flipping comments. And I get it, sometimes you say shit you don't mean, but then again, it's not like your play on the field has shown anything. It's not like the team was showing anything at that point because they were, 1-4, 1-3? And then they were 1-4, obviously, with the loss to Miami Dolphins. And then he doesn't really do great in that game. But against Buffalo, he gets injured, right? He has the injury and comes back versus the Raiders, gets injured once again. So that's that, and he still has yet to return, which is a big issue. It's not just the technique, it's not just a bunch of other things, it's the fact that he's been injured a lot so far in his NFL career, and to get a specific prognosis on his injury, if this would load a little bit, ankle injury. It's an ankle injury, and I'm pretty sure he had an ankle injury last year, but then again, my memory serves me sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't, but right now, he's played a total of 20 games in his NFL career. And we don't know when he's coming back, right? We don't know when he's coming back. And he's got a tough matchup either way, each down the stretch. He's got the Eagles twice, and I get it. They haven't had a lot of sacks this year, but they're going to be looking at Evan Neal when he steps on the field saying, hey, we dominated this guy last year. Let's do that again, this year. And the Rams, I'm not taking them lightly. Sean McVay coached team. They're going to play up. They have playoffs on the line. They're going to want to go after Evan Neal. So 20 games now, and you do 17, and you do 17. So if he misses the rest of the season, let's see, 20, 34, that's 14 games. That is 14 games he will have missed in 2 years, which is key. And this is a guy who was picked 7th overall. And in 2023 so far, the stats aren't great either. Now, he's given up less sacks. That's 2 sacks. Less penalties, 5 penalties, less pressures, but that's bad in a way because he's given up 30 pressures already this year. He gave up 39 in 22. So if he steps on the field, he has a chance to give up more pressures than he did last year in less games, which, again, is not good considering, hey, this guy was 7th overall. You need to, boost your expectations to reality at some point rather than just saying, okay, the bar is low, you got to do this, that. No. So we're going to go to some key points, right? Key points and also a question at the end. Number one problem is Bobby Johnson. Bobby Johnson has never produced a Pro Bowler. All of the offensive lines under him going back to Buffalo have been average, mediocre, or below average. Even count the Giants in as well. So let's get that straight. They've been decent run blockers. Not this year they haven't. Last year they were. And pass protection has yet to be a actual strength of theirs. Again, look at Buffalo's offensive lines. There's reports that Deion Dawkins actually got better when Bobby Johnson left. There's reports that Buffalo fans and Buffalo coaches had no problem letting that guy walk out of the building because Aaron Kramer came over and he's done better things with the offensive line. So there's that. Problem number one is Bobby Johnson, and he has just this fucking attitude of I know what I'm doing. I know football more than anybody else. No, I get it. You have to have some level of arrogance and an attitude because you're a coach, and yeah, you do know more than a lot of different people. But when your unit continually sucks, that's bad. And the Giants have given up the most sacks in the league. I believe it's over 70 at this point, and that's bad. And I get it. You could attribute some to Daniel Jones and Tommy DeVito. But again, the run blocking is awful. It is awful. Not like last year. They took a step down. And it's not just Evan Neal. Josh Rizzuto still couldn't fix his hand usage. Marcus McKeon still couldn't fix his hand usage. Ben Bredesen's got worse. We don't know if JMS has gotten better. I'm just pointing it out to you guys. Bobby Johnson is the number one problem. But number two, the injuries. Availability is the best ability. And Evan Neal has not been on the field to prove us that he is worth the 7th overall pick. He has not been on the field enough. This constancy of getting injured in this day and age of the NFL when it's more of a faster-paced society than it was maybe 10 years ago, it's not good. Injuries are not good, and not being on the field is not good. But at the same time, when you usually find out about players within their first 2 years, what do we know about Evan Neal at this point? He's inconsistent, has technique issues, and he gets injured a lot. And I'll say something else when we get to the question. Number 3 is technique, obviously. The fact that he's still not taking the third step consistently, some of the hand placement, all these other different things. Same issues with Evan Neal. Same issues. You go to your film analysts. If you want to investigate the film yourself, it doesn't lie. The tape don't lie. But for some reason, the New York Giants feel Bobby Johnson should still be employed and that Evan Neal is just doing fine. Now, here's the big question. Can he be salvaged? Is he a bust? Can he be salvaged? I believe he could. But the chances of that, to a certain level, are very rare. Because you have to rely on, number one, Brian Daboll pulling out his balls and firing Bobby Johnson and getting an offensive line coach in here. And there's only one that has a super serious and great reputation. And I don't know if John Mara, Joe Shane, those guys are going to pay for him because I think he will be a little expensive. Now, he was with the Rams in the offseason, but that was the offseason. His name is Mike Munchak, former Steelers offensive line coach, former Broncos offensive line coach, former Titans offensive line coach, and he is a fucking Hall of Famer. He's played the game at a high level, former Pro Bowler. You think that, the players respect Bobby Johnson. They will respect Mike Munchak 10 times more if he comes in here and you pay him the money. And then you'll see not just an improvement in Evan Neal, but all these guys on the offensive line. If you bring in Bredesen and, obviously if you draft a couple next year, whatever the case may be. But there is, in my opinion, not a high chance of Mike Munchak coming in here. I'm just saying that right now. If they want to fire Bobby Johnson, go ahead. I support that. But who are they bringing in here that has a record like Bill Callahan or Mike Munchak, or even that's like a good record, because you're going to have to throw some offensive line coach names at me. Those are the only two I know. And Pat Flaherty, I don't think he's coming back. He's been with the Giants organization twice. I highly doubt he's coming back for tour number 3. So my next question is this, and it's the final one. Is he a bust? You want my honest opinion, guys? I don't sit here and go around the bush. I don't sit here and go around the bush. I tell you what I feel. Evan Neal is a bust. Evan Neal is a bust. You know why? And it's not all on Evan Neal. It's on Giants development too. What are the chances that he's going to come out here and get super fixed in year 3? Let me remind you that the Giants will need to bring in some competition for the right tackle position. A lot of people have already crossed Evan Neal off their boards, and you know what? I don't disagree with that. Do you guys remember what happened in 2017? Jerry Reese had Andrew Whitworth at the door saying, I want to be a New York Giant. I want to come in here and play for you guys. You know what Jerry Reese did? He said, nah, Eric Flowers is going to turn it around. Do you guys remember how that went? Didn't go good at all. He was a B-U-S-T. And I'm not comparing the personalities at all. But even if you bring in a solid O-line coach, and Evan Neal, he plays solid, is he ever going to live up to number 7 overall pick status? I don't think so. And here's the thing, too. You could talk about, being a good player and this, that, and the other thing, right? It's not just about being a good player. It's not just about improving. It's about being up to your status. It's kind of like being friends with your ex-girlfriend. You knew that you had certain expectations for them, and there's still some feelings there, but you want to just say, hey, we're staying friends, right? That's not necessarily the best thing to do, because Daniel Jones is a prime example. Revisionist history for you. He didn't live up to number 6 overall, and the Giants obviously gave him an extension, and it hasn't worked out, but he didn't live up to number 6 overall. And I get it. There was all these problems, just like Evan Neal, right? The development, the coaching, all these different things. But it doesn't mean you should bring him back in here. And again, Evan Neal, even with better coaching, how much is he going to live up to? Is he going to be a Pro Bowler with super better coaching? Because Andrew Thomas improved in year 2, and I get it. There was a coaching change, but honestly, I don't see Evan Neal making those superior jumps. I don't see him making those big jumps for year 3. The Giants will actually need to bring in competition. And those are my thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops for your drops. I appreciate you all coming back. Sorry if the lighting is weird, but I didn't want it too bright. Appreciate you guys. Again, 10 subs away from the number 1.7K and beyond. Peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool.